today is our day off, so I've dressed appropriately, and given it's 27 degrees outside, I should actually be at the beach, but I am here, and it gives me great pleasure to talk about our 90/80 schedule, and also I couldn't quite match Christina's hair of yesterday, or Antoine's hat as well, so I thought I'd introduce a local hat today as well. So my favourite toweling is with me at the moment. Thank you also for the organising committee. I think it's been a fantastic lineup of speakers so far. 9-day fortnight, we introduced it at Rough Milne about a year or so ago. And the question is, why do we want to disrupt? Why do we want to disrupt a working week that has been the norm pretty much since the Industrial Revolution? In New Zealand, we had the first Labour government of 35. 1936, I think they passed the Factories Amendment Act. There was an Industrial Coalition Act about the same time, but that pretty much normalised an 8-hour, 5-day working week for us. And we've pretty much done that ever since. And sometimes questioned it, sometimes not. In thinking about why we might want to do things differently in terms of how we run our organisation or our business, did a little bit of research, and as I said before, there was sometimes, you do things because that's the way you think they should be done, but really is it the way we should be doing it? Frederick Laloux, a really good book about reinventing organisations. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with it. If you aren't, I suggest it's a really good read. Our goal, I suppose, as a business is to try and reach the teal level of organisation. And that's pretty much self-management, less hierarchy, more autonomy, and it's management, it's an organisation around the concept or the metaphor would be a living organism. And that's up here. We're probably about here at the moment. You may also be familiar with the Perpetual Guardian Trust trial. Started last year. They introduced a 4-day, it's a New Zealand company. It's been, the research on it has been taken worldwide. They introduced a 4-day working week. Hours were reduced to 32 hours for the employees, but they still paid them for the 40 hours. They're continuing to do that. I think their organisation is around about 65 or so employees. What they've found is that they've had a 20% increase in production. The general stress levels across their workforce has gone down by 7%, and I think about a 24% increase in feeling that there's a better work-life balance within their organisation. On the downside, they've also had some people say that they actually like the social nature of work, and they miss not being at work on that 5th day of every week. And also, some people are finding it hard to fill in that 3rd day off every week. So, not too sure about that myself. I think I'd find a number of ways to do that quite easily. And of course, France have a 35-hour working week, which I think they introduced around about the start of 1980 through their Aubrey laws. And in the Netherlands, if we look sort of European way, because they do things not too bad over there, I think the average working week is about 29 hours. So why do we need to work 40 hours a week? I forgot to say at the start that we had a couple of people yesterday presenting that confessed that they weren't landscape architects. Well, I am a landscape architect. However, during the course of the rest of these slides, you may come to think that I run a travel industry or a holiday sort of program, but we are a landscape architecture company. For us, there's sort of 5 key touch points. The first being staff wellbeing, and I think it was the crucial point, and that is the main point in why we think about, or why we run a 9-day fortnight. Verity Johnson's also a writer for the press. She does a very good opinion piece or column, which I quite like. She did suggest that perhaps we're getting sucked in a little bit by the wellbeing movement, and I'm not too sure if you're reading that, or if you read through to the bottom, and I don't know if you use face cream from otters' testicles. However, if you do, there's probably nothing too bad about it, and I can assure you that we aren't getting sucked into the wellbeing movement at the moment. We actually consider that to be the #1 key way we do the 9-day fortnight in our office. Second is about the flexible working environment. Do we need to be in our office to work? Shannon touched on this early on in his presentation, showed the driverless car and somebody on the laptop in there. Not quite a driverless car here, not sure if we could have driven afterwards anyway. However, we don't actually need to be in the office to work, particularly with 5G here or coming. What about the Friday dip? There's plenty of research out there that actually we don't achieve a lot on Fridays. We like to think we do, but do we achieve, or how much do we achieve? Research back from 1999 would suggest that the best working days are Tuesday through to Thursday. So why not concentrate some of our time during that part of the week rather than just getting into Friday and filling out that timesheet. Also, there's the idea that we actually perform a hell of a lot better after a rest period. I think that's pretty obvious. And also, and I'm sure most of you will agree, that actually you are really efficient before you go away on holiday. I get a lot done on that last half day. Plus, as a company, I think you want to be relevant as well. And we want to be relevant in the types of employee we have, and the types of employee that might want to come and work for us. One of my colleagues exercising on his bike on his day off, but there was a really good London School of Economics paper out that 67% of Gen Z respondents said that they would think about or working for a company that employed a 4-day or a 9-day fortnight was very appealing. And that's just a wee quote there from one of our recent employees. And there's an environmental benefit as well. Perhaps not high, because I don't rate it highly, but in terms of the company, it wasn't one of the larger things we looked at in terms of the 9-day fortnight. But when you think about big companies, when you think about some of the big cities you might live in and we might work in, there is actually quite a significant environment, or there could be a significant environmental benefit by only working a 4-day week or a 9-day fortnight. And Utah State and their civil servants back in 2007 actually introduced a 4-day working week, and they found they cut, or employees' expenses went down something like $5 to $6 million annually, and there was about a 12,000 metric tonne decrease in carbon emissions from employees not going to work on that 4th day. And there's just been a wee bit of research out in this last week. Microsoft Japan ran a 4-day week for all of their employees in August this year, 2,300 employees, so it can be done for big companies. Their copying, or the paper used in photocopying, went down over that month 56.7%, I think, decrease in use of paper. Electricity for running the company went down 23%. Their production went up 40%. And during that month of August, 25% less in sick days. So quite some interesting stats. How's my time going? Does it all stack up? And what has been our experience to date? And I think internationally, if you do the reading, there's probably a mixed bag of results. We certainly, as a company, think it really does stack up. Our work standard has remained high. We are getting through a very similar amount of work as what we have done previously. And I think we've got a greater team engagement. So what does a 9-day working fortnight look like for us? It's not compulsory. Most of our staff have opted into it. Some have opted into it by reducing their hours, so they might now do a 32-hour or a 35-hour week. Some have kept the 40 hours, but do those over the 9 days, so it's another half hour or so per day. And we have a couple of staff members doing the 4-day week. One on 40 hours over 4 days each week, and the other one reduced to 32 hours over the 4 days. So it's a mixed bag, and I think one of the key things for us is that, well, it's in the next slide after this one, so I'll get to that in a minute, is combined with the flexible working environment is that flexible working day. And why I want to touch on this now is that our staff member doing the 40 hours over 4 days per week, she wasn't coming to our boot camp. So we run a boot camp each week for staff. It's not compulsory. I certainly don't stand over people forcing them to come, but it's actually a really nice release in the middle of the day. It's run on a Tuesday. For anybody else who wants to come and join, they can. And coming back to that, the work efficiency after you've done something else other than work, so after some exercise or the like. And our employee who was doing the 40 hours, she just said, well, I couldn't come to boot camp because it would mean I'd have a dip in my hours, and I need that. I need those hours for my pay. And so we just said, well, actually, we'll pay for everybody to go to work to boot camp, because it makes absolute sense. I'm not convinced that somebody sitting there working through to get their 10 hours done is any more efficient than somebody taking an hour out to do boot camp. Managing expectations is a key thing, and initially it was managing the expectations of our clients and the consultants we work with. You'd often get the phone, oh, yeah, that's right, you guys don't work that, you're not working tomorrow. Oh, you know, what's happening? I had one client say, I just don't know how you can operate a business like that. I've been commerce for 50, 60 years in Australia, and oh, it's the end of the world. What are you doing? You're running your company into the ground. However, we've found that we've managed that, you know, as long as you manage those expectations, you're right. And most consultants and clients go say, you know, good on you. One size does not fit all, and is this my time? Is this 12 minutes on the screen here? Cool, excellent. Just going to wrap it up. One size does not fit all, and I think that's the key. It is being flexible, and so we do have some staff working on that second Friday when the other staff are having that Friday off. And I think that's probably the key. Just to wrap up, there's a couple other staff comments here, and I'll finish on this one, is that it's very important to manage, and when we talk about managing expectations, managing staff expectations as well. So as an employer, we can't be expecting them to come in on that 10th day when they don't normally, because you've got a deadline. It's for you to manage that. And it's also to understand that it's okay actually having staff coming in on that 10th day to do a wee bit of work if they want to. So looking forward, I'd suggest that the 9-day fortnight is working pretty well for us. I'm certainly a big advocate for it. But it's not about the bottom line, and that's not the reason we're doing it. It's actually all about managing staff well-being and actually having staff engaged in what they're doing. So please embrace that 9-day fortnight. I'm back to the beach.